Who do you think would still be famous today if they hadn't died young? I mean, anyone who's famous is usually still gonna be famous after they die. It's not like people just forget about them cause they kicked the bucket or whatever. Maybe some peeps will stop talking about him as much, but I doubt their fame would completely disappear. Pop Smoke. He had a massive buzz and I don't think it would have died off. He was getting real close with his mentor 50, probably would have been brought out on tour, we could have seen more experimental material Latin pop crossover. He'd be on top of the game still. John Benet Ramsey. She came from a wealthy family and looked like her mother, who was gorgeous as a young woman. Her mother also pushed her to do pageants and wanted her to become an actress. She definitely could have made it big if she wasn't murdered as a child. Kobe Bryant. Not quite as young, but he's a rare breed that is getting even more famous even after his death. His video for Shohei is one of the reasons Shohei signed with the Dodgers. Even after death he's still influential to the next generations of athletes. Brandon Lee. He did an amazing job with The Crow and I can imagine if he hadn't passed there would have been sequels, and possibly spin-offs, especially since the comic book to movie pipeline really took off in the 90s with digital effects. Jane Austen and Oscar Wilde would have had much more extensive bodies of work than what they did leave behind if they hadn't died in their 40s as they were really starting to hone their literary craft. My pick would be Buddy Holly. I think he would have expanded into producing, writing for others, maybe even film scores. He was a big influence considering he was only with us for such a short time. Christina Grimmie, her YouTube was huge and she had such a powerful voice. Her cover on Titanium was fantastic. I can imagine how large her fame would have been had she not passed so tragically. Kurt Cobain. He's much too influential of a figure, even having died only a couple years into his fame. Even if he acted like a total asshole now, he'd still be totally famous. Marilyn Monroe would be at icon level and not as underestimated, although she'd have an extremely rocky 80s-90s, she'd bet white level shine after the hump. Tupac. I'd really like to hear his take on current events. I'd like to imagine he'd have settled down and been a really motivational speaker, or a poet. Cameron Boyce. He didn't deserve to die so young. He was a talented actor and dancer, and he was working to building a non-profit too when he passed. Philip Seymour Hoffman. The dude had talent seeping from his pores. He was such a talented artist, had given immeasurable performances. Sam Cooke. Otis Redding. Steve Irwin. Ugh. Thinking about what Steve could have continued to do for the environment breaks my heart. Don't know in the still famous category, but Bon Scott. It would be interesting for directions of AC/DC if Bon didn't die in 80. I sometimes wonder how John Kennedy Toole's life might have gone differently if his works had been published during his lifetime. Tough question. Maybe Kurt Cobain or Amy Winehouse? They had talent and a tragic end, so people tend to remember them. James Dean. Believe he would have acted for some time then gone behind the camera as director, furthering his career theme. I wouldn't necessarily say young, but Bob Ross might have become as big of an icon as Fred Rogers had he lived longer. Selena Quintanilla was Beyoncé before Beyoncé. Chadwick Boseman. Michael K. Williams. Philip Seymour Hoffman. River Phoenix. Heath Ledger. Jonathan Brandis. Unfortunately there has been too many to count at this point. Freddie Mercury was 45 when he passed away. Older than some, but not old by any stretch of the imagination. Heath Ledger, just think of the performances he put on film and what could have come since his death. John Belushi and Chris Farley. Shrek with Farley as the voice actor would have been so awesome. Hendrix would still be rockin', probably in a chair on the porch, but that was one cool dude. Paul Walker. The trajectory of the Fast movies would be much different if he's still around. Heath Ledger. I probably butchered the spelling, but we lost out on some quality cinema. Ian Curtis, a singer from Joy Division. The band dissolved and reformed into New Order. Martin Luther King was born in 1929, he died when he was only 39. He could be 94 today. Bradley Nowell, lead singer of Sublime. Probably had tons of great music left in him. Heath Ledger. I could see him as one of the top actors in the entertainment industry. King Tutankhamun, because he would be the oldest person alive at over 3,000 years old. Imagine if Chester would have stuck around to see the resurgence of nu metal. Brandon Lee was good and had a generation of goth kids following him. Bruce Lee would still make martial art movies if he didn't die at 32. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. One would be president of the USA. James Dean. He showed great potential. What a tragic death. Kurt Cobain, Freddie Mercury, Michael Jackson, Amy Winehouse, Heath Ledger, Tupac, Brittany Murphy, Aaliyah, Buddy Holly. Paul Walker would have probably made a lot more movies. MJ Evans, a personal family friend who is also a writer. Amy Winehouse, that train wreck had a hell of a voice. Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, Heath Ledger, Jimi Hendrix, Michael Hutchence, David Bowie, Prince, Princess Diana. River Phoenix would have at least one Oscar by now.